The arena was silent, a vast circle carved into the jagged cliffs of Zithra. Thousands of eyes, both alien and human observers, were fixed on the figure in the center. She stood tall, her armor reflecting the pale light of the twin suns. Elara, the undefeated warrior of Zithra, had just defeated the last challenger, her blade still warm from the final strike. Her movements were precise, flawless, almost like a dance, and the air itself seemed to bend to her skill. Every victory she had earned made her a legend, a force no one could hope to match. Yet beneath the surface of admiration, whispers stirred. Some spoke of awe, others of fear. The elders watched from their high vantage points, their faces unreadable masks. Ilara's triumphs were undeniable, but her rise was dangerous. Her power was unmatched, her fame widespread, and in the hearts of the council, a seed of fear had begun to grow. The council convened immediately after the last fight. They debated in hushed tones, their voices echoing through the marble halls of the palace. "She has become more than a warrior," one elder said, voice trembling. "She challenges our authority without intending to. We cannot allow her to continue unchallenged." Another elder added, "Exile is the only path. She must be removed before her power destabilizes our society." The decision was unanimous. Elara, for all her victories, was to be exiled. When the announcement reached her, Elara felt a strange combination of fury and disbelief. She had fought honorably, faced every warrior without faltering, and yet she was to be cast out. Pride, the pride that had carried her through countless battles, burned within her chest. Still she bowed to the council, not out of submission, but out of a disciplined respect for the order she had long served. Her blade, her companion and symbol of her victories, was her only comfort now. She left the arena under the watchful gaze of thousands, each step echoing on the stone floor. The people watched her departure in silence, a mixture of admiration and unease in their eyes. Some whispered their loyalty, others their pity. Yet no one dared approach. Elara's reputation was not merely of skill, but of an aura that seemed untouchable. Even in exile, she carried the presence of a storm. Her exile took her to the outskirts of Zithra, to the harsh and unforgiving landscapes beyond the city. The cliffs and canyons, normally avoided by the citizens, became her new home. She walked alone, her mind racing with thoughts of betrayal, honor, and what she would do next. The twin suns beat down on her, yet she did not waver. She had always faced challenges head-on, and this exile, while unjust, would be no different. Days passed in isolation. Elara trained tirelessly, her movements sharp, each strike a testament to her unmatched skill. The wilderness became her arena. Rocks, trees, and streams were her opponents. Every swing of her blade, every leap and roll, honed her body further. Yet, even with her focus, a sense of emptiness lingered. Victory had always given her purpose, but now there was no one to challenge her, no one to test her limits. The thrill of combat had become a distant memory. It was during one of these solitary exercises that she first noticed the presence of another. A figure, small and unassuming, observed from the edge of the canyon. A human. The species was rare on Zithra, and Elara had only heard stories of their ingenuity and adaptability. The human's eyes were bright with curiosity, not fear. Unlike the alien warriors she had faced, there was no arrogance, no intent to dominate. Instead, there was an intelligent calm, a sense of purpose that intrigued her. The human introduced himself as Kale, part of an interstellar mission exploring the outer planets. He spoke little of power or combat. Instead, he observed, analyzed, and learned. Elara, used to opponents who measured strength in brute force, found his approach foreign yet compelling. Kale watched her, not with fear, but with a keen understanding that humans were capable of seeing things others could not. Their first encounter was not a clash of blades, but a test of wits. Elara challenged him, her instincts urging her to strike, to test his worth. Kale did not fight back in the traditional sense. He dodged, redirected, and countered in ways that seemed almost preemptive. Every movement he made was calculated, almost like anticipating her very thoughts. The encounter ended without a single fatal blow, yet Elara felt a rush she had not known in years. For the first time, she had met someone who could match her, not in strength, but in unpredictability and intelligence. The following days were tense. Rumors reached her that rogue mercenaries, seeing an opportunity, had planned to eliminate her entirely. They feared her skill and wanted her gone forever. Elara, aware of the danger, prepared herself for an inevitable confrontation. Her blade, the one instrument she had always relied on, became her focus once more. She trained with precision, refining every motion, anticipating every possible attack. When the mercenaries finally arrived, the clash was violent. Elara moved like a shadow, striking with lethal precision. Yet, despite her skill, one of the attackers disarmed her with a brutal strike. Her sword clattered across the stone floor. Elara, for the first time in her life, felt vulnerability. She had defeated every warrior, faced every challenge, yet here, unarmed, she was at the mercy of her enemies. It was then that Kale intervened. With movements swift and deliberate, he positioned himself between Elara and the mercenaries. Using his knowledge of the terrain and quick reflexes, he deflected strikes, creating openings for her to recover. Elara, stunned, saw him not as weak but as someone who understood the flow of battle in a way that transcended raw power. In a moment of desperation, Elara regained her footing and lunged for her blade. Kale reacted instantly. He intercepted her strike, stopping her blade midair. The force of the encounter was unlike anything she had ever faced. His grip was not the strongest, but his technique and timing made it impossible for her to continue. The crowd of mercenaries froze, witnessing the human's extraordinary skill. Then, with a calculated motion, Kale shattered the sword. The sound of metal breaking echoed through the canyon. Elara stepped back, eyes wide, disbelief written across her face. Her blade, the symbol of every victory, every conquest, was gone, yet she did not feel fear. She felt a stirring of respect, a recognition of skill that matched her own. Kale looked at her steadily, not with malice but with a calm determination. "There are battles that cannot be won by strength alone," he said quietly. His words struck her more than any blade ever could. She realized that power was not always about who struck the hardest, but about who could think, adapt, and act when the outcome seemed impossible. Elara's fury simmered, transforming into curiosity. This human, small and unassuming, had stopped her in a way no warrior ever could. He had shown her a form of strength she had never considered: ingenuity, adaptability, and fearlessness. For the first time, Elara felt the thrill of a true challenge, one that required more than physical prowess. The mercenaries, realizing their advantage was lost, fled into the shadows. Elara remained, staring at the broken pieces of her sword. She knew her path had changed. She could continue to rely on strength alone, or she could learn from this human, embrace a new way of fighting, and perhaps discover limits she never knew existed. Kale extended a hand, not to challenge her further but as a gesture of understanding. "Strength is more than muscle and skill," he said. "It is knowing when to strike, when to adapt, and when to trust yourself." Elara hesitated, then accepted the gesture. In that moment, a new respect formed between warrior and human, one that would shape the battles yet to come. As the twin suns set over the canyon, Elara and Kale stood together, looking toward the horizon. The alien warriors who had exiled her were far behind, and the mercenaries who sought her destruction were gone. What remained was a new understanding, that human ingenuity could challenge even the mightiest warrior, and that sometimes true power was found not in the sword, but in the mind. Elara felt a spark of excitement she had not known in years. The galaxy was vast, filled with challenges, dangers, and opponents who would test her in ways she had never imagined. With Kale by her side, she knew that the future held battles worth fighting, victories worth earning, and lessons that could reshape the very concept of strength. The canyon fell silent again, but the echo of the shattered sword lingered in the air. It was a reminder that no matter how skilled one was, there was always something more to learn, always a challenge that could redefine what it meant to be strong. Elara, undefeated yet humbled, prepared for the next step in her journey. She did not yet know what awaited her, but she was no longer alone. With the human who had stopped her blade, she would face exile, enemies, and the unknown, discovering along the way that the greatest battles were sometimes those fought within, and the greatest victories were those earned through understanding, trust, and courage. The twin suns disappeared behind the horizon, casting long shadows across the canyon. Elara and Kale stood together, ready to face whatever came next. For the first time in her life, she did not feel invincible, she felt ready. And in the vast galaxy beyond Zithra, that readiness would prove more powerful than any blade. The morning sun spilled its light over the jagged cliffs of Zithra, painting the canyon in hues of gold and crimson. Elara stood at the edge of a high plateau, staring down at the rugged terrain below. Her armor bore scratches from the battles of the previous days, and her hands itched to hold a sword again, to feel the familiar weight and precision. Yet she knew that today would be different. Her path was no longer defined by the blade alone. Kale approached quietly, his presence calm and measured. Unlike the alien warriors she had known, he carried no arrogance, no display of strength. Instead, he carried understanding, patience, and an uncanny ability to anticipate. He had watched her recover from exile and the ambush, and he knew that to challenge Elara meant more than physical confrontation. It meant showing her a new way of fighting, a new way of thinking. "Are you ready?" he asked, his voice steady but not commanding. Elara's gaze did not waver. "I am always ready," she said, though there was a hint of curiosity beneath her pride. She did not yet understand what kind of challenge this human could present. Kale nodded and gestured toward the canyon below. "We are going to train differently today. Not with swords, not with strength, but with strategy, reflex, and adaptation. If you want to surpass your limits, you will need to think like a human." Elara's lips tightened in a faint smile. She had fought countless warriors, survived ambushes, and bested every opponent. Yet the idea of learning from a human, of allowing her mind to be challenged rather than her body, intrigued her. She stepped forward, following him down the steep path, her boots striking the stone with a quiet rhythm. The first exercise was deceptively simple. Kale had scattered a series of obstacles across the canyon floor, rocks, fallen logs, and narrow ledges. The task was to cross without touching the ground, using only the environment. At first, Elara moved instinctively, leaping from rock to rock, her body in perfect control. She was fast, precise, and unyielding. Kale followed, but his movements were different. He did not leap as far, nor did he strike with the same force. Instead, he used careful timing, shifting weight subtly, using momentum in ways Elara had never considered. He moved like water, flowing around the obstacles rather than forcing his way through. Elara watched him closely, noting every detail. At first, she thought his technique unnecessary, even weak. But soon, she noticed something remarkable. Kale's method allowed him to conserve energy, maintain balance in unpredictable ways, and adjust instantly to changing conditions. A rock that would have thrown her off balance did not affect him at all. "You see," Kale said, noticing her attention. "Strength is only part of the equation. Adaptation is just as important." Elara nodded slowly. It was a lesson she had never learned in the warrior arenas of Zithra. There, victory came from strength, speed, and precision. But Kale was showing her a different path, one where intellect, anticipation, and adaptability mattered as much as muscle and skill. The second exercise was more dangerous. Kale had set up a series of moving obstacles, suspended from ropes and pulleys. The challenge was to navigate the path while avoiding the swinging hazards. Elara's instincts screamed for speed, for brute force to push through. She leaped, twisted, and ducked with her usual precision, yet she found herself being knocked off balance repeatedly. Kale, in contrast, moved with careful timing. He watched the patterns, predicted swings, and adjusted his trajectory mid-motion. Each step was calculated, each movement a response to the environment. Elara realized that his advantage was not in raw skill, but in his ability to think ahead, to read situations that were constantly changing. "Patience," Kale said quietly as Elara stumbled over a swinging log. "Watch first. Move second. Anticipate, don't react." Elara gritted her teeth and studied the pattern. Slowly, deliberately, she adjusted her approach. Her jumps became more precise, her landings softer, her movements more fluid. It was different from any training she had done before. She began to understand that intelligence could augment skill, that strategy could turn impossible challenges into manageable ones. By midday, sweat coated their bodies and the sun beat down mercilessly. Yet the training continued, each exercise more complex than the last. Kale had designed challenges that forced Elara to combine her physical prowess with new thinking. She learned to move silently across unstable surfaces, to predict the motion of obstacles, and to respond instinctively without relying solely on strength. Then came the ultimate test. Kale led her to a narrow canyon passage, its walls steep and jagged. At the far end, a group of simulated opponents, mechanical constructs designed to mimic Zithara warriors, stood ready. The task was not merely to reach the other side, but to navigate the passage while avoiding or neutralizing the opponents. Elara's heart quickened. This was familiar territory, yet entirely unfamiliar. She had fought warriors before, but these challenges combined physical skill, strategy, and quick thinking in ways she had never faced. She readied herself, muscles tense, eyes sharp. Kale watched, giving only minimal guidance. "Remember what you've learned," he said. "Don't rely on what you know. Adapt, anticipate, and overcome." The moment she stepped into the canyon, the mechanical opponents moved. Elara struck with precision, neutralizing the first few, but then a swinging log followed by an unstable ledge forced her to improvise. She leaped, twisted, and rolled, using the environment to her advantage. Each move was informed by what Kale had taught her. She was learning to combine strength with intellect, instinct with strategy. Kale followed not to lead but to observe. He moved around her, sometimes clearing a path, sometimes forcing her to think faster, to anticipate his actions. It was a dance, a battle of wits and reflexes, and Elara felt exhilaration she had not known in years. Halfway through, she encountered the toughest obstacle yet, a collapsing ledge that threatened to drop her into the canyon below. Instinctively, she leaped, but Kale called out a warning. "Use the wall," he shouted. Elara adjusted midair, landing against the canyon wall, using friction and balance to stop her fall. The realization struck her like lightning. She was thinking differently now. She was no longer relying solely on raw power. She was learning to read the battlefield, to anticipate, to adapt. When they finally reached the end of the passage, both were breathing heavily, sweat and dust coating their bodies. Elara turned to Kale, eyes wide with a mix of exhaustion and awe. I understand now," she said. "Strength alone is not enough. You've shown me a new kind of power." Kale nodded. "Human ingenuity can be underestimated. But it is not just strength or skill. It is adaptability, creativity, and understanding. Anyone can swing a sword. Not everyone can see the path others cannot." For the first time in her life, Elara felt a sense of humility. She had faced the greatest warriors of Zithara and emerged undefeated, yet here, a human had shown her a form of strength that surpassed even the finest combatants. It was not weakness, It was brilliance, courage, and insight. Their bond strengthened over the following days. Kale continued to challenge her, devising new obstacles, teaching her to think in unconventional ways, to anticipate attacks before they happened. Elara, in turn, shared her knowledge of combat, speed, and precision. They learned from each other, a fusion of alien strength and human ingenuity forming a partnership that neither had expected. Word of their training spread. Other warriors, once confident in their own superiority, came to observe. They watched as Elara moved with a combination of grace, power, and intelligence they had never seen. The council of elders who had once exiled her were forced to reconsider their judgment. They realized that strength without wisdom could be dangerous, but wisdom paired with strength could create a warrior beyond imagination. One evening, Kale and Elara stood on the highest cliff, watching the twin suns set. The sky was ablaze with color and the canyon below seemed peaceful, almost serene. Elara looked at the human who had changed the way she saw power. "You have taught me something no blade ever could," she said softly. Kale smiled. "And you have shown me that strength is more than I ever imagined. Together, we are stronger than either of us alone." The council eventually approached, offering to retract her exile. Elara listened, considering the offer, but she had changed. She no longer sought victory for honor alone. She sought mastery, understanding, and the challenge of growth. She declined the immediate return, choosing instead to continue training, to push boundaries alongside Kale, to explore what true strength could mean. The galaxy beyond Zithra was vast and unknown. There were battles to fight, challenges to face, and lessons yet to learn. Elara and Kale, side by side, prepared to meet them all. Together, they would demonstrate that humans, often underestimated, could not only survive but shape the course of even the most powerful civilizations. The twin suns disappeared behind the horizon, and the canyon fell into shadow. Elara and Kale walked forward, not as teacher and student, not as alien and human, but as equals, partners bound by respect, trust, and shared determination. The shattered sword was gone, but a new weapon had been forged, one of understanding, ingenuity, and unyielding spirit. In the stillness of the night, with the stars beginning to shine above, Elara felt something she had never known, the thrill of a challenge that would never end, the joy of growth, and the exhilaration of partnership. The galaxy was vast, filled with threats, mysteries, and rivals. Yet for the first time, she knew that no matter the obstacle, no matter the enemy, humans could rise, adapt, and triumph in ways even the greatest warriors could not predict. And so, Elara, the undefeated warrior of Zithra, walked alongside Kale, a human who had stopped her blade, shattered her sword, and opened her mind to a new kind of strength. Together, they would face the future, demonstrating to the stars that the true power of humanity was not in muscle alone, but in courage, creativity, and the relentless drive to rise beyond any limit.